Hello everyone, I'm Anita Schakman and you are watching a recording of yesterday's No One Has to Bead Alone Fern motif. We were playing with Fern that initially started out as a really cute small bezel for an 8mm chaton, and we have not quite finished our design yesterday. So what I did, I have finished my earring. I decided to make an earring out of it, and today I'm going to record and show you how I did from the very first step until the very last. So this is our design for today. I'm trying to show. I'm afraid I'm mirrored again. This is our design and this is what we are going to bead. But the initial idea was behind Fern to create a bezel that we can mount onto a base. Why it's interesting is that it's going to widen our possibilities that we can do with embroidery. Very often I find that I like stones that I would like to incorporate into my work, but they have pointy backs. So creating a focal in bead embroidery with a flat back option is quite easy. But when you get to the point that you would like to work with other objects that have more depth, then when tricks come handy. What I'm going to show you is one way of doing it. There are several ways you can create several layers of base. You can cut out a little piece so that your pointy back fits in. But I decided that I'm going to create a bezel, and from that moment on you can decide to join me and bead my fern embroidery motif, or you can just go ahead and decorate that bezel and create a bead waving motif yourself. So what we are going to do, we are going to bead the bezel together, and after that we are going to do the embroidery. So I'm going to show you now with the material list, and of course this one is only showing the materials for the bezel. So when I switch to my hand camera, we can walk through exactly what you are going to need, and you can also find it in the description, the exact material list. So this is the slide from yesterday when we still didn't exactly know how the final design is going to turn out. So let me switch to my hand camera, and we can start right away. So if everything goes well, you should be able to see and just to check that the direction is everything is set correctly. So this is our motif that we are going to bead today, and it started out with this little bead woven bezel. So first of all we will start with the bezel and then continue right away with the embroidery. In total you are going to need one 8mm chaton, 6 pieces of 4mm pearls, 4 pieces of 3mm pearls, 10 pieces of 2mm True2 Fire-Polished beads, 4 pieces of Vexolo beads, 4 pieces of 4mm chaton montees, 4 pieces of 2x3mm fire-polished spacer beads, and some size 15 and size 11 seed beads. On top of that, you are going to need some UltraSuede or other base that you like to work with. It can be laces, it can be felt, it's up to you. I have used a small piece of cardboard It's a chocolate paper. It's relatively thin. I have used some textile glue, and that is it about tools what we need. I worked with size 11 tulip needle. I have 0.12 millimeter FireLine. We will need some pen, scissors for both paper and fabric, and that is it. So we can start right away with the bead weaving. What I'm going to do, I'm taking now approximately a meter long FireLine. I'm not 100% sure how long how long is the FireLine that we are going to need, but we will see it at the end, and I will make sure that in the description you can see the exact length. So if I measure right now my thread, then it is, I'm starting out with, let's see, 1.20 meters, that is 47 inches. And we will see how much are we going to add at the end, or how much is going to left over. So we are going to start with our small bezel. What you have to know about the bezel, that up until the very last moment it is not going to be secure. You are still going to need to go around on the top a couple of times if you feel that it is not really sturdy enough. What can also make it somewhat sturdier, it is not proof beaded though, that you see that I start out with size 11 seed beads. If you would switch those to size 15 seed beads, I think the pattern would work with that as well. It would make the base smaller, and because of that the beads on the top would get closer and they would actually hold the cabochon tighter. I am a very tight beader, so if you doubt, just repeat the thread path, and that should hopefully at the end help on your tension issues. So we are going to start out picking up 6 pieces of 4mm pearls and 4 pieces of size 11 seed beads. So 5 and 6. And I'm going to go through all the beads again one more time. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to tie a knot. That will make sure that the base is not going to come loose and it is not going to interfere with the tension later on. So here, right, I have to bead through it again. I accidentally let my tail go. What we can decide to do, we are going to stitch down the bezel, and we can also stitch down the bezel using the tail. So when you go around one more time, you can make sure that you leave a nice amount of tail. I think what I would be comfortable with would be around this length, and if I want to measure it, first let me tie a knot, and then I'm going to measure how much thread I left on the bottom to work with later on. And of course, we will see if that is enough, and I will put the information in the description. So let me see, let me measure. We are working with a tail of Right, this way it is easier. Mine is roughly 17 centimeters, that is 6.5 inches. So if you leave 7 inches, that should be more than enough to stitch down your bezel at the end. What we are going to do, so I have tied a knot, I went through every bead twice, and I'm going to exit from a purl. What you can see on this illustration, that we are going to add one more size 11 seed bead in between the 4mm pearls, and on the top illustration you see that they are going to fall under each other. This is a step that you don't need to reinforce, so we are just going to go around and add one size 11 seed beads, again in between every single pearl. You can pull a bit tighter, and this is what you are going to end up with. So I'm again going one more step, picking up one size 11 seed bead in between every 4mm pearl again. 3, 4, 5, and 6. What I would do in this case right now, that I would bead through a size 11 seed bead from the previous step. So what I'm going to avoid with that it is not going to pull the thread more out. So if you doubt which one is which seed bead size 11 is from the previous step, that's just great, because it means that your tension is great, so you don't need to worry about it. It might look a little bit funky here and there, but the next steps steps are going to even it out. So this is my little ring that I have ended up with. What I can do right now, I could stitch this down using the size 11 seed beads to an UltraSuede, and then after that I work around with the bezel already attached to the UltraSuede. I am going to go ahead and just do the bead waving first, so you can choose what you want to do. Sometimes it is good to have this option. So I'm going to go ahead and do the embroidery, do the bead waving, completely finish it, and then I'm going to stitch my bezel to the foundation, and then we are going to bead further from that moment. So as you can see here, I used one side of the seed beads to fix my cabochon to this ring, and I'm going to use the bottom seed beads to fix the whole bezel to my foundation. And if you look at it from the side, what we want to see here, that the point on the back of the chaton, the point of the chaton, is not peeking out. So it is going to give a nice even surface. It's not going to warp our foundation. The foil is not going to be damaged on the back. There are several tips. This is the advantage of these kind of bezels when you build on, for example, bigger pearls. So I'm going to show the next step, and we are going to go ahead with the bezel. So what I would do I actually really like to go the other way around. I'm beading backwards. So what we are going to do, we are going to pick up the combination of size 15 seed bead, 2mm fire polished bead or True2 bead, and one more size 15, and we are going to bead through the next size 11 seed bead. This is what we are going to do all around, a total of 6 times. So we are going to make sure that it falls a little bit more towards the inside. You don't need to put your chaton in the middle right away, because the bezel covers very little of the edges, and after we added this group of beads all around, there's still going to be plenty of space to place your cabochon in the middle. So this is number 4. And it's number 5. And number 6. One more last size 15 seed bead. And I'm going to bead through size 11. What I'm still going to do, I'm going to still bead through 2 group of beads and size 11 seed bead in between them. So this way we have our thread exiting from the size 15 seed bead, right? Have our thread exiting from the size 15 seed bead right after the True2 bead. So I'm going to grab my cabochon, give it a little tap so it's nice and shiny, and I'm going to place it in the middle of my little motif facing upwards. So here, and I'm going to hold it down with one finger. Here I have the thread exiting from size 15, and I'm going to skip this size 11 seed bead, and I'm going to bead through size 15 through to size 15. So I'm just going to bead through all the newly added beads. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to skip the size 11 seed beads in between, and this is going to move our seed beads and True2 beads closer to each other. What you're going to see that you are still going to have a little bit of thread showing, but that is going to be fixed with the next and last step. So I have from True2 still going through the seed bead, and here just listen to your instincts. If you feel like it is still very loose, go ahead and repeat the thread path one more time. But be aware of it that after this step, your bezel is still, your cabochon is still not going to be fixed in properly. So after this step, you are still going to be able to pop it out. So after I exit from the size 15 seed bead, every single time I pull my thread a little bit closer. You will see that after the second round, the seed beads are getting closer. It is more difficult to go through the size 15 through to size 15 in one go, so I'm also dividing into 2 steps to bead through those 3 beads. And every single time I pull the thread a little bit more. So I'm actually pretty happy with how much my cabochon is not falling out, but it is not an expectation. So I think I just got lucky. So here we have our thread exiting from this size 15 seed bead right in front of the size 11. But you can see indeed there's still some little bit of thread showing it is not completely pulled close together. So what we are going to do, we are going to pick up a size 15 seed bead and go through size 15, through 2, and size 15. Now what is going to happen? We are going to pop that size 15 right on top of the size 11 seed bead, and it is going to create a little bit of picot, a small picot. So here, that is our, I'm trying to focus the camera, that is our new seed bead here. So again, we pick up one more size 15 seed bead and bead through size 15 through to size 15. So in total we are going to add 6 pieces of size 15 seed beads. And the last one. No, not the last one. I'm still missing one more. So by now my bezel is really tight, and if you feel like your needle is not cooperating, probably it is better to switch to a smaller or a thinner needle. I'm trying to bead through, and honestly I don't want to break any beads, so I decided to grab a size 12 tulip needle and just use that to push through. It is much better than breaking a bead. So at this point I have a good faith that this cabochon is not going to get out of my bezel. So I still had to bead through one more size 15 after the True2, pick up my last size 15 seed bead, and yeah, I have all new size 15 added. What I'm not quite happy with is how the first picot here, I don't think, and the last one is also a little bit too loose. So what I'm going to do, I'm still going to repeat the thread path. I'm going to skip the newly added beads, and well, it's more aesthetics than necessity, but I want to make it look a bit more consistent. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull my thread after the first new bead and see how that goes, if I'm still able to pull it a bit closer. And indeed, so this already looks a little bit better. So what I would do at this point, I would exit from size 15 seed bead, before we added the new one. So I'm not going to go through the new size 15 seed bead. So I'm going through size 15, through to size 15, and then after that I'm going to go through size 11 under. So I'm going to step down one, and after that from the opposite direction, the other size 11 right under the previous one. What I have now is a finished bezel and my working thread coming out of one of the bottom beads of my bezel. So here I have my tail coming out of a pearl. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to push it through the bottom 11, size 11 as well. This is the advantage of working with FireLine, because that just works without a needle. So now I just have both my tail and my working thread coming out of the most bottom lowest size 11 seed beads. So our bezel is finished. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to prep my foundation. If you watched yesterday's No One Has to Bead Alone, you will see that I have regretted not to use some more guidelines. This time I'm going to draw them to make sure that everything is as symmetrical as I can go. So I'm going to put my bezel a little bit on the side. I'm going to pick a piece of UltraSuede, and I am going to draw here. And I hope that I won't lose my beads in the meanwhile. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a small piece of UltraSuede. The size of it is well, really small. I'm just using leftovers, so it is 4.5 centimeters. That is 1.75 inches, and the length is also relatively small, 6 centimeters. That is 2.5 inches. So it is a very small-ish piece, and I'm still being very generous. So I don't need this big. If I put my finished earring on, you see that this is how much space I still have to work with. It is plenty. If I really wanted to, half would have been enough. So if you like to save space, this is enough for the base and the backing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw one straight line in the middle, more or less. So I use a ruler and the pen, and I kind of draw a line kind of in the middle. And what I'm going to do, well, this is going to be more or less my middle. So I'm just eyeballing it. If you are working with a much smaller space of foundation, you can also measure it out. The size of the finished earring is going to be, so just the embroidery piece is going to be in the description below as well. So this is my middle, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to line up, because I definitely did not do it straight. I'm going to make sure that this line and this line is just on my axis, and I'm going to just draw it as well and clean my desk later. So this is what we are going to work with, just to make it easier and avoid thread getting stuck. I am also going to just round my corners a bit so that I don't drag my foundation with me that often. It will happen from time to time, but that will help avoid the worst. So this is what we are going to work with. And what I did yesterday, I have aligned my capuchon. So I have put it in the middle. What I'm going to have to pay attention to is that my size 11 seed beads, they all tie to the axis here, that one as well, and try to catch the middle of the pearl with the other axis. So what we are going to do now, we are first going to stitch down the first seed bead, size 11, with 2 stitches, and then after that I will switch my needle to the tail and I will stitch down my size 11 on the opposite side. So I'm certain that the direction, the positioning is going to be fine, and after that I will go ahead and stitch down all the rest of the size 11 seed beads, the other 4, to the foundation with the tail, and I'm going to cut my tail. So again, pay attention that your size 11 seed bead ties to the axis. The middle of the pearl also kind of aligned with the guideline. So I'm going to stitch down once, as close as I can to the size 11 seed bead, and I'm going to stitch up, go through the size 11 seed bead, pull, and then repeat. And repeat. I'm going to leave my working thread out of this size 11. So I pulled my needle off and I'm going to go and continue with the tail. So, but maybe before I go ahead with everything, I have to make sure that I'm indeed, I switched back to size 11 needle. If you prefer, you can also go ahead and work with size 10. They work fine. We have not used the whole of the size 11 seed bead that much. They will go through without any issues. So again, I'm sorry if you hear the background, but we are having the biggest building in this in the neighborhood being completely destroyed. It is kind of too warm without sitting without my window open. So here, again, I'm making sure that my pearls are aligned, my size 11 seed bead is aligned, and I'm going to stitch this down twice, just like I did with the size 11 seed bead on the opposite side of the motif. So stitch it down twice. Make sure that your base doesn't wrinkle, and check if your positioning is still good. You can still adjust it a little bit. Make sure that you are symmetrical. These 2 stitches are the most nerve-wracking because this will determine how your bezel is going to be positioned on the foundation. So I have now these 2 seed beads stitched down, and then I will just go ahead and stitch down the other 4, always a little bit checking if my positioning is still good. That is 1. And 2. 1. And I accidentally caught my working thread. So I can move it a bit out of the way. And then I proceed with the first stitch. And then my second. I skip to the other side, and then I continue stitching down the last 2 size 11 seed beads. One stitch. Oh, I lost my needle. I'm trying to cut or throw away as little FireLine as I can, because it is a great thread. I really like it. I had to learn to like it, but it is of course not the cheapest thread on the market, so I'm trying to save every little piece. Normally I use them for embroidery because it's really forgiving. You can just tie a knot anywhere and continue with a new short thread what is left over from other bead weaving projects. So this is that's why I'm losing needle all the time, because I'm trying to keep my waste as little as possible. So this is my last seed, size 11 seed bead, and my last stitch. So I'm going to do, I think, 2 single knots like that. However, I have the feeling that that was not an actual knot. Let me do 1 double knot, and that should do the trick. So what I'm going to still do after pulling my thread, I'm going to cut my thread and I'm going to leave like ½ centimeter from the thread, because it will be catched in between the cardboard and the glue, and that will again help for it to not untie and lose the connection to the foundation. So our seed beads are officially stitched down. I'm going to check. We are going to go ahead with the working thread, and we are going to stitch these 2 chaton montees down. So I'm going to try to exit on the guideline as close to the size 11 seed bead as possible, and I'm going to pick up a chaton monte, a 4mm chaton monte, and I'm going to stitch down the UltraSuede again, paying attention that I go through the guideline. That's one stitch, and then we are going to repeat the stitch itself. So we are going through the chaton monte and stitch down the UltraSuede or the foundation, and it is placed. I'm going to repeat it on the other side. I'm checking if my bezel is moved. It should be still alright. So make sure that you don't pull your thread too much, because that's what you're going to end up with. So just leave it loose. If it is not working, you can always decide to just hold your thread down on the back and just a half hitch, so that you don't accidentally pull too much. And you will exit again on the guideline closest to the size 11 seed bead. You pick up a chaton monte, and then you stitch it down again. I'm afraid I used the wrong holes, so what is important that you don't go through neighboring holes, but across the whole setting. So here I'm going to stitch down as close as possible to the chaton through the axis and repeat the stitch. Right, so this is where we are right now. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through the back, and we are going to add these 2 or these 4 Vexolo beads. And here is the trick. I'm going to come up next to this size 11 seed bead on the side towards the chaton. So I'm coming up next to it, and I'm making sure that everything still stays flat. Go through size 11 seed bead, and we are going to try to make it very symmetrical. So I'm going to pick up a Vexolo bead, checking both holes, going through the hole closest to the pointy end, and going back through the other hole. I figured that this way I can really place it evenly, or more even than how I was trying yesterday. So this is a little bit of advice that if you are really trying to work symmetrical and it's really an odd shape and odd things, then this should help. And what I have here, Vexolo, pull on the thread and trying to stitch it the way that the point of the Vexolo just a little bit touches the chaton monte. So you try to get there and then you stitch down. It's going to be one single stitch, and the Vexolo is only fixed on one side. So this is going to allow us still to move it a little bit when other beads are already attached to the foundation. So as I did again, symmetrical on the other side, coming out of the foundation, going through the size 11 seed bead, and picking up a new Vexolo bead. Again, making sure holes are open, going through first the pointy end and then the other open hole. Pull it to the very end of your thread and try to align it the way that your Vexolo is slightly touching your chaton monte, and where the hole should go, or where your other hole is, there you fix it down to the foundation. Super wonky. Don't be afraid. This is okay. This is normal. So we are going to try and repeat these two Vexolos on the other side of the motif as well. So through size 11. See, I'm still, you try to pull it as close as possible, but it's still going to move, and that's fine. Vexolo. And trying to move it down the thread and then through the foundation. We are going to add our last Vexolo. First pointy, then the other hole, and as close as possible to the end of the thread, and then stitch it down where you think that it best touches. So these are wonky, they are not looking all that great at this moment, but we are still going to move them a little bit after we put or stitched the other two chaton montes down, what is our next step. So we are going to exit our foundation on the guideline at the middle of the purl, and we will pick up one chaton monte and stitch it down. And again, trying to find the middle, pull a little bit, you bead through the middle hole, and then if you pull, then it should go relatively straight again. And then we repeat on the other side as well. I see that my guideline is not completely in the middle anymore. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to eyeball it and try to make it symmetrical. So it's a guideline and not a rule or not an order. It is there to help you. So I'm again coming out of the foundation and then stitch it down again. So what we are going to do now, we are going to try to fix the Vexolo beads down. So I'm going to push my Vexolo how I want to have it. I come out of the UltraSuede between the Vexolo and the pearl, and then I go through one hole. I make sure that my foundation is straight, my bead is where I want it to be. So I pay attention to both ends. There's something, I have thread going on there. So let me fix that first, because it seems that I have some thread going on that should have already been stitched down. So let me see. Where that one is coming from. That one's coming from our Vexolo bead that we are going to fix down. So let me see. So what I see here is that the problem is coming from the chaton, where I have not pulled it tight enough. So I'm going to try to fix it off camera, so that we don't have any loose ends going on, and then I will come back. So right now we have our thread coming out of the Vexolo, and we are going to see how it should be positioned, and we are going to stitch it down on the other side. So we go again on this side of the Vexolo. We come out between the pearl and the Vexolo bead. We bead through the other point of the Vexolo, and then we are going to stitch down right away. So like this, all 4 holes are fixed to the base, or all 4 exits, 2 holes, both sides are fixed. I will repeat this and make sure that all of my Vexolos and on all sides, they are just fixed to the foundation. position them as well as I can and stitch them completely down. And then again, begin the purl, and then like this I'm trying to pull the Vexolos as close as possible to our chaton bezel. Holding it down, 2 fingers, trying to push through as well as I can. So this is our last Vexolo. And our last stitch with the Vexolos. So with this, they should already be looking a little bit more symmetrical. So what we are going to do now is we are going to add this detail here with the pearl and the gecko beads. So I get out here from at the middle of the Vexolo bead, the end and the middle, and I'm going to pick up a combination of 3mm pearl, size 15, a gecko, another size 15, and another 3mm pearl. And symmetrically, I'm going to stitch down on the other side. So I go back, come out again in between the pearl and the Vexolo bead, go through the pearl only, and try to make sure that the gecko bead is more or less in the middle, and stitch down. Here we come out again between the pearl and the Vexolo. We will go through again a pearl, the first pearl, and after that we are going to pick up a size 11 seed bead. Then we skip size 15, then we are going to go and bead through gecko. Pick up another size 11 seed bead, go through pearl, so we skip the size 15 again, and stitch down the foundation. Now really have to pay attention that at this point it's straight, because you are going to come up in between the seed beads and the pearl. Bead through the pearl and stitch as close as you can close to the Vexolo bead. And pull. And we are going to do this on the other side as well. So we will exit in next to the Vexolo bead, completely in the middle. Again, pick up 3mm pearl, size 15 seed bead, a gecko bead, another size 15 seed bead, and a 3mm pearl. Then we are going to bead through the foundation again at the middle of the Vexolo bead. Bead through the foundation in between the Vexolo and the pearl, bead through pearl, the 3mm pearl, and again down the foundation as close as possible to the pearl. Again, coming out of the foundation in between the Vexolo bead and the 3mm pearl, I bead through the first 3mm pearl. I pick up a size 11 seed bead, and I have just pushed away a little bit. Bead through gecko, so we skip the size 15, pull a little bit, so this will also move our size 15 a bit lower or down. To pick up another size 11 seed bead and bead through pearl. You bead down the foundation at the Vexolo bead as close to it as possible. Pull. And I see that there's a little bit of more gap, so I'm going to push my pearl a little bit towards that direction. I'm going to come up from the foundation, out of the foundation a little bit under the pearl. And with this I'm going to adjust it and pull it closer to the Vexolo bead. So again, pull a little bit and stitch down. If you want, you can go ahead and also stitch down at the gecko beads. That will give some more stability. But if you have a trusty glue, you can also just put a little dip under when your motif is finished. And I'm just going to stitch it down with one stitch, paying attention that my seed beads also stay as they should. And go ahead and stitch my geckos down on the other side as well. So here I can still decide to pull my thread a little bit under it, go through the gecko and pull the gecko a little bit closer to the chaton. So the gap is somewhat less. Like that. So we only have one thing left, and that is adding this little detail next to the chatons. And if you want, if you can see, there is like one seed bead next to the chatons here as well in the gaps, just to make sure that it's a bit more covered. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come out of the foundation next to the chaton on the side, bead through the chaton, the open hole of the chaton. So we are going sideways, and we are going to pick up a 2 by 3 millimeter faceted spacer, a size 11 seed bead, and a 2 millimeter True2 Fire-Polished bead. And after this, we are going to bead through the Vexolo's hole. So this is what's happening now. And I'm out of the Vexolo's hole. I'm going to stitch down here in the foundation on the other side. And I'm going to bead through more or less the same spot, and I'm going to pick up a size 15 seed bead. After that, I'm going to bead through again, and I'm just going to fill that little gap with a size 15 seed bead. I'm going to repeat it on the other side of the chaton as well. Bead through, pick up a size 15, bead down, and I fill that little gap with a size 15 seed bead. Have to make sure that your holes are aligned properly. So what I'm going to do here at this point, I'm not very happy with the placement of my seed bead. I could redo it, of course, but I'm just going to bead through it again. And then that's how I'm going to go through the hole of the Vexolo. So it will pull it a bit closer to the Vexolo bead. Hopefully that will help on my issue. And let me check my thread if I don't drag it along. So this is my size 15 seed bead. So I'm going to pick up the opposite. So first a True2 bead, then a size 11 seed bead, and then a spacer bead, and bead through the chaton. Then I pick up a spacer, size 11, sorry, and a True2 Fire-Polished bead, and bead through Vexolo's hole. So at this point, these beads that I'm adding, they are not attached to the foundation. So that we will still have to fix later on. So I stitch down foundation, pull a little bit, stitch back up, pick up a size 15, stitch back down, and add that size 15 on the other side of the chaton as well. If you have the space, you can always decide, check what works best for you. Maybe you don't have space at all, maybe you actually need a size 11 seed bead. Check what's best in your situation. So I go through the Vexolo bead, bead through, pick up a True2 size 11, and then a spacer bead, and bead through chaton. So at this point, we are almost done, but my thread is pretty much done. So this is going to be a good good place for me to finish my thread. So at this point we know that 1 meter and 20 centimeters is not the number. So I will add some extra thread, and I'm going to measure. So I'm going to finish my thread here. You'll pay attention that I don't make any mess. finish my thread here. One moment. So I think I'm going to go ahead with the same thread if I don't cut it again with the edging. So I'm going to add another, hopefully I still have 1 meter left on this spool, and otherwise I will have to add some more. So that was 1 meter 20 before, and I think maybe this is going to be like 80-ish centimeters. Let's see. I'm literally using my last piece of thread. Ooh, 81 centimeters. I should play lottery. That is 32 inches. Wow. That was quite impressive. Not 80, but 81 centimeters. So in total, we are working with 2 meters of thread. And of course, you can also deduct this amount that we don't use at the end. So here I'm just going to tie some knots with my existing tail, and after that I'm just also going to do some stitches on the base itself. So I'm going to end up definitely having it fixed and not losing any threads in the meanwhile. So I'm going to push down, and I'm going to fix my thread. So what we were doing, we are coming out of the chaton here, right? That was our last step. So we threw our chaton, and we are also going to, if I find the hole of the chaton, and we are also going to bead through the spacer and size 11 seed bead as well, like that. And after this we are going to, alright, it seems that my thread got caught in other beads. Let me fix that. So we are going to stitch as close as we can to the Vexolo. So we are coming out of size 11, stitch down the foundation close to the Vexolo bead, come up from the foundation before the size 11 seed bead, bead through size 11 and through 2. There. Pick up one size 15 seed bead and stitch down the foundation like that. And here we are going on the other side, and we are going to do it the other way around. We come up before the True2 bead, close to the Vexolo, pick up a size 15, bead through True2 size 11, and fix the size 11 to the foundation. So we bead through size 11, spacer, chaton montee, spacer, size 11. So here I'm trying to stretch. At some point I pulled my thread a bit more because my foundation is starting to warp a bit. So I'm going to stitch down after the size 11 seed bead. Stitch up before the size 11. Go through size 11 through 2. And pick up size 15 and stitch down next to the Vexolo bead. And then one more, and we are almost done. So we stitch up before the True2, pick up a size 15 seed bead, and bead through True2 size 11. Stitch down at 11, size 11 seed bead. Stitch up before or in between the size 11 and True2, and go through size 11. I'm also going to go through the spacer, and probably after the spacer I'm just going to stitch down, and I'm going to tie a knot. A double knot, and finish my tails here. And our embroidery is, at least the bead part, is finished. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out the UltraSuede, the foundation. So I'm going to go big girl, bold movement. And I'm really paying attention to the threads on the back, and also the working thread, because I just want to continue with that one. What I'm going to do at the Vexolo, I'm just going to I grab my biggest fabric scissors, because with this I can just go in one go. What you have to pay attention at the back, that you really don't cut your threads. So first you can also just be a bit less bold, and I'm trying to cut at the geckos in an angle. And you don't have to cut it out at once if it is not going for some reason. Then you can also be more careful. Oops, this should have gone in one go. And just adjust. Take all the time that you need. It's not a rush. Very points. And from the back, I'm also going to check if it is more or less symmetrical, but I think I will have to check it off camera a bit. I think this side can be a bit less. Like that. So I've got it out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a little piece of paper, cardboard paper that I just had here, but I think I misplaced it, so I will just work with whatever is left here. I'm going to check where my thread is coming out of, and then I make sure that it's nice and visible. I'm going to place my motif on the cardboard, and with a pen I'm just going to draw around it. I know that my outline is not going to be perfect, because I'm drawing around the beads and not the actual foundation, so it's also going to be a somewhat wonky, and the actual outline is going to be much smaller. What I'm still going to do here, because I was trying to work symmetrically, but yes, it's not exact, it's never going to be. So I'm also going to draw my thread. So this is where my thread is coming out of. After that, I'm also going to go like this is where my thread is coming out of, because I'm going to cut off the piece of paper and I'm going to lose this information. What I want is to cut out a piece that is 2.5 millimeters, which is in inches. Oh, very little. Let me check if I find my. It is 1/8 of an inch. I would say 1/8 of an inch smaller than the piece that you work on. So I draw some outline, and this is what I'm actually going to cut out. So the smaller motif. I grab my paper scissors and I'm going to cut out this piece here. And here is the trick. And what I realized that the best glue that I've ever gotten to temporarily glue anything is textile glue. I have this Gutermann HT2. It's transparent, dries transparent, dries flexible. I don't need anything else in my life ever. No, this is the best. I'm sticking to it and I'm very, very happy about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put glue on this little piece of cardboard. And this textile glue is going to dry in a minute. It is very, very fast. So it's very nice because I'm really able to show you everything right away. It dries fast, so work fast, and it dries flexible. It's not going to be hard. So when you stitch through, even if it is completely glued, you are not going to have the feeling that you are stitching through concrete. It's perfect. It's an ideal temporary glue. So what I did here, and was kind of bold, the textile glue works because it attaches textures together, and because of my paper is pretty smooth on the other end, I'm going to grab a craft knife, but you can do it with a pair of scissors or with whatever suits your needs, and scratch my paper a little bit. So like this, I'm also creating a little bit of more texture, so when it dries also quicker, and it will hold a bit better. And I really need it to hold until I do the etching, and after that I actually don't really care what happens to it, because my FireLine and my beads are going to hold everything down. So this is almost like a minute, so I will start and go ahead. I will go ahead and put glue on my paper again on the other side. And quickly close because it keeps coming out. And yeah, glue it down, put it down, and try to be quick. Push a little bit, and after a minute we can just cut it out. So I also just push a little bit. I really wait the 1 minute because that's all what it takes. I'm going to put my work here down, and I'm going to show you some cabochons that this bezel could also work. So we use that 1 minute properly. I have here, I believe it is like a 30 by 20 drop that again has a little bit of bottom. So I think 6mm pearl bezel around or under and around would completely or perfectly work. So it doesn't have a really big pointy back, but it is definitely not straight. Or I have another example. It's a 30 by 40mm oval cabochon that again, it is not really pointy, but the back of it is just not straight, and it can have a little bit of support. Again, I think with 4mm pearls would work, but it depends on what you want to create. You can also create 4mm smaller round, and then 6mm on the edges. You have to try, but that gives you some option. Or what I really like, I have here a 35mm round cabochon that again has a slight point on the back, or the 27mm round cabochon where the back I think even pointier than the bigger option. So these are all things where you could think that I can work with 6 or 8mm pearls or fire polished beads, or you name it, what you feel like, and that way you can fix it on your foundation, and then you can work around it with whatever pleases you, whatever kind of beads or metal components or chenille or whatever you feel like working with when you do your embroidery. So these are just examples where you can go. However, if you go with that big, I would suggest either use an embroidery frame or a more stiff foundation. So I'm going to grab my fabric scissors, and I will really try not to cut my thread again, because with the first earring that I made, that was the first thing that I did. I cut my thread right away. So I had to stitch again, I had to tie knots, and I worked with the same thread that I already had attached, but I had to attach it again. So it is more or less, and then you can again check if there is anywhere where you would change the shape, would like to change the shape. So I'm going to show you the edging. It is going to be somewhat different. Works too, it gives a different effect. Of course, an hour ago I put away my bead embroidered pendant, so I can't show you, but usually you would do the edging having the holes facing up, and now we are going to do the edging where the holes are going sideways. So this is the back of my earring. It is very quick, very simple, and if I would have not been lazy, I could have gone around one more time and it would have given a crisp line all around. So that is something that can be improved. I was in a hurry. So I'm going to show you how I do the edging. So I'm going to show you the start of it and the point of it, and later on, obtaining this knowledge, you can just finish the whole edging on your own. So what I'm doing here, actually I'm coming out in between layers. So first I'm just going to stitch either up or down, so all the layers are just falling on one side of my thread. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to go through all the layers again, I do a half hitch. So like this, and if you pull straight, your thread is coming out in the middle. Completely symmetrical. So we are going to pick up 2 pieces of size 15 seed bead. And we think, where is it going to fall? That is going to be more or less here when it is straight. So that's where we are going to stitch through all layers. And this is where you have to pay attention if you are new to this. You see the thread, the 2 size 15, and then you just go through this thread in between the beads, and then you pull. And that is it. There's a very tiny little thing you have to pay attention, and then it works like a charm every single time. So your thread is coming out, actually not from the beads, but the thread is just kind of half knotted in front of the beads. You have 2 more size 15. After doing it 3-4 times, you already feel what the length of these 2 beads are. And there, wherever, if it is comfortable more from the bottom to the top, then you do that. You bead through. Your beads are getting close to the beads that are already stitched down. And then you make sure that you go through or in front of the thread. Make sure that your beads are where they should be, and then you just pull. And that is it. And they are going to get nice and close together. And if at the end you're not happy how they behave, you can just go through only the edging beads, and then you can create a nice and crisp line. So I'm going to do it until the point, and at the point I'm going to show how I do it. It is not really a difficult thing to do. So I'm going to quickly, in front of the camera, just stitch to the point. Not through the beads that I have added to the foundation, but just quickly. I can also just decide to pull it all the way and then just under the beads, hop through. So it is also a way of doing edging. So we are getting close to the edge or to the point of the motif. And I have lost size 15. And I can see what I want to do here. I think what I'm going to do here is just stitch right at the point. I think that is more or less my distance. And do that. Just a normal stitch. And what I'm going to do here, and I think this is the trickier way you can end at the point, so it's very nice that I can show it here. I'm again continuing on like nothing happened, like I would go straight, just through both layers. Again, hook your thread, and here it is far from ideal how it looks on the point. So what I'm going to do, I stitch down the foundation and I come out. So I'm going to show it on the back, probably it's better. I'm stitching down on the foundation. I'm coming out in front of the last two before the point. So a little cheat here. I'm beading through these last two beads. I'm picking up one more size 15 and I bead through the last two beads that I have added. So if I pull, it looks much better. It is pointy. So it's very nice that we ended up having this difficulty, well, not really difficulty at the end, so I could show it to you. What I'm going to do here, I'm coming out of that size 15 there, and then I just pick up another two size 15, or you can also decide to stitch down first, what you prefer, but it is not a big, it's not going to make a big difference there. So here again, stitch through the fabric and under my beads, not through the fabric, just in between, you see, that way, and pull. And that's how your corner or point is going to look like at the end. I'm going to add two more stitches so that it is a bit more continuous what you have to do, and show what I would do at the end, or what I did with my half earring. So one more stitch so you have a better idea how it looks like. And like that. So you are going to have a pretty nice straight line going on here. And this is something that you do all around. It's a very quick edging, and actually I like this one the most of all. The other one is more ideal if you want to have some lacy or riffle thing going around, but if you just want to have a crisp line, this is my favorite edging stitch to go. What I did here, where I added that one bead in the middle, I came out of that one, I picked up 3 size 15 seed beads, a connector, and against 3 size 15 seed beads. And if you download the pattern, you are going to have on the last page, going to have some help how to attach your metal findings based on the orientation of the holes. So that is going to help you, but that is basically what I did here as well. I stitched back through the exact same bead and then went through the beads one more time and finished my thread, and I connected or added an earring component, and this is how I finished my earring. So this way you have a much more complete bead along than what you had yesterday. So you are going to end up with something that you can wear, gift, or make you happy while beading. So I'm going to finish this edging off camera, and I will start to make one more, or probably go ahead with this one and make it into a small pendant and create the PDF file for you. So for those of you who also like to work more from illustration than bead along, then you also have something to look forward to. So I'm going to switch my camera. Thank you so much for sticking out and bead this cute little earring with me. And I'm going to try to make the pattern as fast as I can, so you can also save it for later or just bead at your ease without really having to pay attention to my instructions. So thank you so much once more, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you are going to like your jewel. Bye bye.